it does get difficult to speak about things off the cuff at some point. When I first did my first like 4 or 5 videos, it was easier to do a stream of consciousness because I was speaking about things very fresh in my mind and things that I could easily discuss in a passionate way. So I'm just picking more records again today. 10 more records, or actually 11. I wanted to pick 11 because there was one, the final one is something I wanted to show, even though it's like a compilation album. And so I picked 11 records to show again. They're all over the place. Um, I almost pretty much showed my entire collection at this point. Like, I forget how many this is, maybe 60 or 70 records I've showed over this series at least. And I hope it demonstrates also my songwriting style, that I want to explore different genres because that's how I listen to music. I don't look at the political side of music or anything like that. I just want to listen to music. And I don't care if it's from 2025 or 1910 or whatever the fuck. Like, I just want to listen to good music and find something different. Find people who want to experiment with stuff and not just make commercial cardboard cutout pop songs and stuff like that. Nothing against that. I realize there's a need for that, I guess, like on commercial radio, 3 4 minute pop songs and then get to the commercials. You know, it's a mode, it's a business mode. It's not the only business though of music. It's one of the business modes of the music industry to write 3 4 minute catchy songs, hopefully catchy songs that don't make people want to turn the radio to another station. So yeah, I'm not shitting on that, man. I talked about the radio industry already. That's not how I write songs. I'm not saying I'm better than other people or worse than other people. That's just me as an artist in general. I've never said, let me try to write a radio song. But if you look up some of my songs in my other series, Anatomy of a Song series, the first one I shared was a song called Reincarnate. And I did a shitty job. It was the first one I tried. I knew it was going to be difficult because I didn't even really try to use my guitar to share that song. It's called Reincarnate. It's from my album called Welcome to Bullshit Land from 2021, I think. And it's a catchy, upbeat pop song. I hear it in my head like this could be on radio stations, alternative radio stations, hip hop. It could kind of cross platforms and genres because it's like that Pharrell song Happy. Like they were playing that on every station. Some songs I think can just get there. I'm not, maybe lyrically Reincarnate is kind of weird and maybe it won't hit a global audience like that. There's no curse words or anything. I don't think so. But it's not exactly like "Cause I'm happy." I love that song. I'm not making fun of that. I love that song. There's some pop songs that are just great pop songs. Like I kind of shit on like that type of music because I feel like it is like some factory where they just fit a mold and okay, this demographic likes it. This demographic likes it. We got a hit. Like it's weird like that. The politics of music, just like anything else, is kind of weird. Like, but yeah, I don't really write songs like that. But a couple, I wrote like 500 songs that I shared in my book. So it's like some of them could be commercially viable. I believe so, at least, in terms of just the catchiness and the songwriting and how I hear it, if it could be produced professionally. That's the ultimate goal. Like, my goal is not to just release a book of poetry and be like done. Well, my life's done. Nah, like my goal is to make actual music, learn how to produce stuff myself, or sell my songs to other people who could maybe reinterpret it in their own style or similar to how I hear it. This is the type of stuff I don't know exactly. Like, it's a part of any business. I don't know, how do I get into the screenplay business or music business, like, because millions of people are trying to do the same thing, right? So I hope these records today and my other past videos kind of display that I love all types of music: classical, jazz, heavy metal, hip hop, punk music, no wave, shoegaze, folk music, Americana. Like, I can get into country stuff. I can get into death metal. Like, it just depends what I'm doing or whatever. Like, it's just a form of expression. Like, you have to explore all these different forms of expression to know the industry and know kind of what you want to achieve as a songwriter or any kind of artist. Like, you have to explore all these different things, and you're not going to like everything, of course, but exploring stuff is an essential way to develop as an artist. Not to mimic people, not to copy people, but just to be inspired by other types of art. And one album among these 11 will really demonstrate that, I think. Um, so yeah, like, today's Tuesday, so I'm only gonna make two more videos after this. Tomorrow, I'm gonna make a video discussing 5 books that kind of influenced me and helped me write my own book, even though they're nothing like the book I wrote. And then Thursday, I'll just be like my closing argument. And hopefully by then, the book will be edited completely. I think I have about 100 pages left. I did 100 pages, edited 100 pages last night. So I got like 100 pages left to do sometime today or tonight. And yeah, it reads pretty well. Like, I'm just going through that final editing type of thing where you have to look at the commas and does this flow correctly? Check for all the periods and commas and parentheses and you know formatting to make sure that the indenting is correct and spacing is correct. Like, I'm doing all that stuff now, not just cosmetic stuff, but also grammar stuff and flow, but very minimal at this point. Like, I read a chapter from my book yesterday. If you want to check that out, I still plan to do an audio book, but I'm not really thinking about it yet. Right now, I just want to finish this part of the evolution and move on at some point, because I know the audio book will be, if not as difficult as actually writing the book, it's going to be a hell of an experience to learn how to be a better speaker in general. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld. He said people are more afraid of speaking at a funeral than actually dying at a or being the one in the casket. I've heard other people say similar lines like that. Public speaking is tough. Like, no, right now, no one's even watching these videos. I'm just speaking to myself pretty much. But it's still difficult because I know I'm being recorded, and I know maybe somebody will watch this one day. I don't know. And it's like, you want to be authentic. You want to keep it real and not say anything offensive, but also not be like censoring yourself. It's a tough thing to do, man. Like, on Thursday, I'm gonna also list some of my favorite comedians and stuff, because I feel like comedians are poets. Maybe they don't present themselves like that or term themselves like that, but comedians are just like poets, just like songwriters or writers or other people. And it's an art form that's just, to me, they're like modern day prophets and poets. Like, that's why comedy, to me, it can't be restricted. Like, I feel like comedy is that last frontier, artistic frontier, that no one should ever be restricted from any thoughts or speech or anything. Because if you start doing that in the comedy realm, then it's gonna just you know, it's going to erode all kinds of art forms and free expression and stuff. Like, yeah, I get it. There's more important issues than censorship and stuff like this, but those are important issues. Like they've been in every generation to have an informed populace and also people who aren't afraid to express themselves and to think anything that pops in your head and explore those thoughts. Like, I don't know, that's just my. I feel like I always talk about this in every video I do, so that's probably a good transition to the first record. I got this a couple years ago. I think it's actually the UK version of it. I think I got it off eBay because it looked kind of cool with the UK pressing of this. Mind Games, John Lennon, 19 was it 73? I thought it was later than that. 1973, I think. So yeah, this was the UK version of this, 1973, and yeah, I haven't explored John Lennon's entire discography, but this album connected with me mainly the title track "Mind Games." Like, I heard that song and I just was like one of those moments where you knew that song was going to be important in your life. And there's other great songs on this. Out of the Blue, I think it's called Out the Blue. And there's some weird stuff like Meat City. I think he produced this himself, and maybe the first time. I'm not sure about that, but it's been inspirational to me. My album Digital Incineration is the first time I tried to write hip hop songs, and this was one of the songs I wanted to sample as one of my hooks. They keep playing those mind games. I feel like that would be a cool hook in a rap song, in a hip hop song like that. Hopefully, no one's done it yet because I'm not really sure. But I'm sure sampling John Lennon would be a shit ton of money. So, of course, these are just my utopian musical soundscapes of the songs I'm writing. Most likely, I won't be able to, so I'll have to come up with something to replace that idea. But in a perfect world where I could sample any song I want, yeah, this was what inspired my one track on Digital Incineration was Mind Games, the chorus. And yeah, it's still just a classic song. I think a lot of people know that song. And he seemed to be, during this period, he was like going through a lot of shit politically. His immigration, his marriage, or his relationship was kind of going crazy. So I don't know. He explored some weird shit on this. I'm not an expert on every song, but I think his lyrics are pretty cool on this one. Mind Games, especially, blew me away lyrically and musically. And of course, he's from Liverpool. I don't have to give a bio about John Lennon, really. And I mentioned him a couple times in my book and the Beatles in general. Um, One of my playlists on Spotify is just simply 250 songs that I cited within my book. I think it's pretty much every song I cited or lyric I used in my chapters and stuff like that. And yeah, there's a couple Beatles songs, Mother Nature's Son, I think, and Mind Games, and there's probably more I'm forgetting about. But I went through my entire book, and every time I mentioned an artist or a song, I would just include it in a Spotify playlist. And I think it's at 250 songs right now. All right, let's go. The next one is the second time I've spoken about a classical album. This is Stravinsky, Rite of Spring. This was actually a damaged copy. I had to buy like new things to make seams on it, but the record's clean. The record's very clean. I'm not sure what year this came out. This record, 1957, if I'm seeing that correctly. But Of course, the actual composition, I think Stravinsky composed this in 1913. I did a little bit of research again on these because I didn't want to sound too stupid and just go stream of consciousness again. I said it's going to get more difficult now because I can't tell you the bio of Stravinsky and stuff like that. All I can do is explain how this music connected to me. I also have the Firebird, which is another one he did around this time. I have that on vinyl too. I think I was getting into Stravinsky at some point years ago, and those were the two that really connected with me. Excuse me. This is RCA Victor, and really cool cover as well. Some of these classical covers are very appealing paintings and stuff. And I just think it's cool. Like supposedly when they premiered this concert, it was like a big hubbub, and I don't know, is it true that like a riot almost broke out because people were like going crazy over this classical music? Supposedly something like that. It was kind of the avant-garde type of classical concert, and people were kind of like, "This is too radical. Ah, our brains can't take this." And it kind of reminded me of John Denver, that radio stations refused to play Rocky Mountain High because they thought it was like a drug reference. So it's really weird to see how censorship of art has gone through the years. Like John Lennon's Imagine, people thought that was like a communist anthem. Like, whoa, he's talking about a peaceful world where, what the hell? We can't have this on commercial radio. And it's just funny to me that John Denver was like considered a threat to the youth of America at some point in the 70s. So it's kind of similar to Stravinsky too. Like I guess people thought he was like gonna pollute people's minds with his radical classical music. It's kind of interesting. Frank Zappa kind of led me to this because he cited this as someone important to his early upbringing, and also Edgar Varese. He mentioned him too, a French American composer. I used to have some of his records, but I donated them years ago. But yeah, I want to learn more about classical music in general because I can't speak to, well, this third movement of the I can't speak like that. Like some people, usually you have to be a part of that scene as an actual musician to know all the ins and outs of it. Classical music is just I'll put it on. I like it instantly or I don't. And I list my 10 favorite classical albums in my book because there's really only 10 that I really felt honest enough, authentic enough to list and be like, yeah, I've connected to these albums at some point in my life. So I didn't want to make a whole list just based on, well, according to whatever website, these are the best classical pieces ever. So I'll just pick a couple of these and pretend I know what I'm talking about. I didn't want it to sound like that in anything that I wrote. So there's some weird ones on there that I picked and some newer ones. But yeah, I like classical music. Mainly, I developed that love by collecting vinyl, like I said before, because you could find records for really cheap. And even though I'm not educated on classical stuff, and I can't discuss composers like with other people and be like, yeah, his last symphony, holy shit, man. Like I would like to get there at some point, but I can't hold a conversation like that. This is somebody completely different. Chet Atkins in Hollywood. This is like my favorite album cover. It's just so cool looking. It's actually kind of different for Chet Atkins. I learned that Chet Atkins, I believe he was born in Tennessee. He spent most of his life like in Nashville. Guitar virtuoso, one of the best country guitarists. And this album cover is just so cool. It just makes me happy to look at it. I just want to be transported to this moment in time and hang out with this lady and stare at this guitar in the window or whatever. It's just floating there. But yeah, it's just cool. It's from what year is this from? I don't even know if I looked it up. 1959. And Chet Atkins, I think a lot of people know him. I did not list him as one of my favorite 50 guitarists because I don't think I did at least. Mainly because I don't know his stuff as well as other people that I listed. I learned of Chet Atkins not that long ago from an interview with David Rawlings because David Rawlings kind of listed him as an influence. How he formed his style was kind of maybe taken from Chet Atkins a little bit, and how he just grooves almost effortlessly on the guitar. So yeah, I'm a fan. I think he's crazy talented. This album's weird. It's like all standards and like full orchestration. It's like a soundtrack. So it's different than country stuff. But I liked it. I only listened to it once on this record, and it was pretty cool. Very lush arrangements, and I looked up the guy's name to give him credit. Dennis Farnon, I believe he did all their orchestration and arrangements like that. And yeah, it's cool. I wanted to pick this because the cover's so cool. So it's probably like in my top of the albums I own now. Like this one makes me happy to look at it. Just a cool picture. But Chet Atkins, yeah, he worked with a lot of people. Elvis, either even Skeeter Davis, Everly Brothers, probably tons more that you know. I'm not listing everything he's ever done in his life, but yeah, it's pretty cool. If you like that type of late '50s, '60s kind of, I was gonna say Herb Albert, but not like that. It's not really like that. Maybe a little bit, and it's just very lush orchestration, instrumentation. The arrangements are really cool. A lot of a lot of these songs I have heard of Green Sleeves, of course, and Theme from a Picnic. That was the one a lot of the articles I was reading mentioned that one. Theme from a Picnic. It's songs like that. It's got that feel of like you're in a Mad Men, the show Mad Men. Like that's what it feels like, I guess, when you listen to this album. Like you're in that show for half an hour or so. So it's pretty cool. I would recommend this to anybody. If you're a country lover and that's why you like you love Chet Atkins because of his country stylings, this is totally different, but you probably like it. He's still jamming on it. So yeah, check it out. And this is a new one from 2021. This was my favorite album of that year. Jane Weaver flopped. She's also from Liverpool, another Liverpool artist like John Lennon. And maybe that's why I like watching English Premier League, and I felt like I just had to pick a team to follow a long time ago when I started watching it. So I just picked Liverpool because that was like the only place I knew in England. But yeah, I'm actually a big fan now. They're actually like really good team and shit. And yeah, she's awesome. I've heard of her before I got this album. Modern Cosmology was 2017, and that one's just as good, if not better than this. And this was my favorite album of 2021. I would just listen to this all the time back then. I don't buy a lot of new records, at least not anymore. But over that time, I like to buy maybe five a year of like my top five records. And this was my overall just complete favorite. Just really poppy, dreamy, electronic, synthy stuff. And yeah, she's an expert songwriter, expert melody writer. I love her voice. And yeah, it's kind of psychedelic at times. She had an album out last year too. It was really good. And if you never heard of Jane Weaver, you know, I would recommend it. She wrote all these songs and produced them. So yeah, she's been doing it a long time, and she's one of those artists, like I said, with Aurora. If she comes out with a new album, most likely I'll just buy it because it's going to be good. I don't. I'm pretty like 99% sure if she comes out with a new album, you could just go buy it because you know it's going to be interesting and well produced and well crafted songs. And this is another fairly new album. I'll thank XPN for this one too because I think I learned of this album on XPN. Maybe they did some live songs or something back then. The Jayhawks, paging Mr. Proust, and yeah, this album was one of my favorites in 2015. Paging Mr. Proust, really cool cover as well. Jayhawks, they've been doing it for a long time. Never was like a huge fan. I never even bought anything from them like ever until this one. This one, I don't know, it just instantly connected with me. Every song's good. They're at least from Minnesota, I think. I did a little bit of research on them just to say, well, they're from Minnesota. I know this band, and I tried listening to some of their other stuff because they're fairly popular and they're listed on a lot of end of year lists. You find a lot of their stuff. It's not just like Americana country, folky, but they have some poppier stuff and some heavier stuff on here. There's a guitar solo on the song Ace, and I don't know, it's one of my favorite guitar solos of all time. It's just so weird, and I don't know how to explain it. Disjointed. It just sounds so unique to me, I guess. So go listen to that song. It's called Ace. But every song on here is good. Comeback Kids. A lot of these were on the radio too. The Devil is in Her Eyes, The Dust of Long Dead Stars. I said Ace is really good. Leaving the Monsters Behind. That might be my favorite one. Quiet Corners, Empty Spaces. And there is a Peter Buck. Peter Buck was also one of the producers on this. I think he does a lot of stuff. But yeah, this is a great album. 2015, The Jayhawks, Paging Mr. Proust. It's a perfect album. Every song hits for me at least. I'm going a little bit quicker through these because I don't want to talk for an hour. I'm at like 30 minutes right now, so I'll see how long this video goes. This is Fat Records, No Use for a Name, and I feel like this was an album when I heard it the first time, like when it first came out. I didn't really like it that much. I don't know. It didn't connect with me at first, and then years later, I put it back on, and now it's like in my top five punk albums of all time. I think it's like a perfect album, and Tony Sly, sadly, he passed away. I think a few years ago. He was only like in his 40s. I think this was the last kind of collection of songs from him, but maybe there's other stuff that he did as well after this. This is 2008. The first concert I ever saw as a kid was in grade school in Pennsauken, at the Pennsauken, New Jersey Expo Center back then. I think now it's like a mega church, but it was the Offspring headlining because it was when Smash came out in like '95. Quicksand was one of the other bands, which is still a great band. I love Quicksand. Their album Slip, I think it's called, that made my list of like the top 501 albums that shaped my life. I put Offspring Smash, I put this one, and I put Quicksand because not just nostalgia. Maybe nostalgia has a little bit to do with it, but they're just amazing albums. I'm not the only one. Like, a lot of people say that about the Quicksand album. It's like a classic kind of dirty, grungy punk album of the '90s, like that. So check them out too. I wanted to show this one because of that connection to my childhood, like being a Catholic school kid, and then you get to go see punk rock, and it's just a different experience, man. I remember the concert kind of clearly. Like I didn't know No Use for a Name. I didn't know Quicksand, but of course the Offspring were like everywhere back then. And this album in general is just, if I had to describe Southern California pop punk to somebody, the production is amazing. The songwriting is just stellar. Catchy songs, even though the lyrics are kind of political at times, and but there's an energy to this entire album that just flows perfectly. And yeah, it's a classic album. I would recommend this to anyone who loves, punk rock, anyone who likes just rock music. There's some Beatles songs like very influenced by Beatles type of melodies and stuff. There's some softer acoustic songs like that. There's like the trumpet player. Just the melodies on here are just insanely good. And I've listened to this album a million times, and I don't really get sick of it. So No Use for a Name. Check out their entire catalog. Really, this one's kind of interesting. I don't know when I found this or how I found this in 2021. It's Lee Scratch Perry and New Age Doom. Lee Scratch Perry's Guide to the Universe. If I had to compare this to something, I think it's like David Bowie's Black Star, because Lee Scratch Perry passed away in 2021, and kind of like how David Bowie came out with Black Star, this one's kind of similar to that type of commemorating an artist's life almost. But like Black Star is amazing. This one's just as good. I would recommend this to anyone. Like if you don't, if you hate reggae and dub and what Lee Scratch Perry was mostly known for, this is very experimental, weird ambient electronic stuff. So this could have a very wide audience, I think. Um, this was my introduction to Lee Scratch Perry. I had no idea who he was, and then later I went down his '70s stuff in Jamaica and his stuff, reggae, ska stuff, and the two albums recently that I listened to was the from the late '70s Super Ape and the Return of the Super Ape, and he actually did more to that series later in like the last decade or so. So he was doing art his entire life in one way or the other. Like he was doing visual arts, he was doing music up to his '70s and stuff. Like up until his dying day, he was trying to be creative, and that's just very inspiring. So yeah, I would recommend this if you've never heard of Lee Scratch Perry. Like I don't know if this is the best way to introduce him to you, but because if you go to his early stuff, it's going to be nothing like this. But same with David Bowie. Like David Bowie was like a different persona in so many eras of his life. I think Lee Scratch Perry kind of checks those boxes. Like he's a composer, singer, producer. He does a lot of shit. So yeah, I just feel like people like that just want to make cool art, and they're born to just create something like that, and they realize that, and they're actually able to set it in motion and not just keep it in their head for 20 years like I did. I'm trying to get to that point, to be less of a hermit and less of a pussy when it comes to sharing stuff with people, because it is difficult. when I was writing all these songs over the last 20 years, like I never intended to share them with anyone. I just did it because I don't know, something was compelling me to do it. I did share sometimes I would share stuff on like stupid websites and MySpace, but most of the time, at least since I lived in this apartment, I would just record songs on my little crappy recorder and form concept albums that I thought would be cool. And that was my entire process until 2020, 2021, when well, I had time to do all this stuff. So it's weird. Artistic process, I guess, is different for everyone. This is ELO Time from 1981. I think this is a favorite among a lot of ELO fans, even though maybe it got shit on by some critics back then. I love this from the first time I heard it. Twilight, I said it's one of my favorite songs ever. The production, the weird mix of 1950s, almost like rockabilly stuff, 1950s rock and roll with like the spacey production. It's just a perfect song. There's so many other great classic songs on this. Yours truly, Ticket to the Moon, The Way Life's Meant to Be. Like that one influenced one of my songs completely. Um, Hold On Tight. That was like in some car commercial. It's a perfect album. Like I like this even more than El Dorado. I think this is probably their best. I have El Dorado as well, but this one I think is better. And Jeff Lynne's another guy. He just knew he was meant to make music, produce music. He's crazy talented. He plays so many instruments, produces so many other artists, and yeah, you just have to give people like that the respect they deserve. And yeah, he's Jeff Lynne specifically. Like, I hate only speaking of him because there's other people in this band, but Jeff Lynne's produced other albums that I love, and yeah, definitely one of my songwriting heroes like that. And one of my albums that I talked about is called Waitress from Mars. It's about a waitress from Mars. And it's kind of set up like a screenplay science fiction story. I talked about it before when I spoke of Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. This one influenced it just as much. And because I want that almost 80s production feel to a lot of the songs that I'm trying to write, mixed with 80s hair metal. I don't know. I'm not really sure how the songs will come out if I ever actually make that album. But without Operation Mindcrime and without this album, which I found much later, like I wrote Waitress from Mars in 2007, 8, 9, around that time. But when I got more technical about composing the songs and forming the songs, at that point in 2022, I've already heard this album. I already listened to Operation Mindcrime. So those were the two biggest inspirations. They might not have formed the songs originally, but it was kind of like a reverse inspiration. If I ever do produce my own music and stuff, those would be the two kind of blueprints for me to try to achieve a similar atmosphere like albums like that. This is another album from the early 80s, I think, 1980. And a lot of people talk about this album. So just like I didn't want to speak about Dark Side of the Moon because everyone mentions that one. Everyone mentions Remain in Light. A lot of people mention this album, Talking Heads, Remain in Light, 1980. David Byrne, another big influence. He's worked with so many other artists. He's done plays and musicals. And he's an experimental guy, just in general. Kind of, uh, when I say eccentric, I don't mean it in a bad way. when you call somebody eccentric, it's not an insult, in my opinion. To be an interesting artist, you kind of have to be that way almost. But that's a different conversation, I guess. Like, what does that even mean to be a real artist? I don't fucking know. If you write a commercial jingle for Crohn's disease or some shit, are you an artist? I don't know. You're right. If you spend your life writing commercial jingles and they're like amazing poppy songs, seal your home, the Sloman shield, all those stupid jingles like that. It's still in my head from like childhood. Whoever wrote that song is probably getting royalty checks or something. So are they no less an artist than like David Byrne or somebody? I don't know. What the fuck am I talking about? Whatever. This is a great album. Supposedly he kind of wanted to disappear to a different place, so they like recorded this in the Bahamas or something. I did limited research. I didn't feel like learning everything about this album, but it's Brian Eno. I never knew Brian Eno produced this, and maybe that's another reason I liked it so much. But I'm a fairly big Talking Heads fan. I don't think I like if I would make my favorite like Talking Head songs, it'll probably be like 30, 40, 50 songs. Like, maybe haven't explored every one of their albums like I have with this one, but in terms of influence and in terms of just a different style of vocalizations and bass playing, and this one's like the Afro beat Fela Kuti stuff and polyrhythms, which I don't really understand how to explain what a polyrhythm is, but I know it when I hear it. Like I guess it's just two different rhythms clashing together in a harmonious way, or I'm just completely wrong about that. But it's something to do with that Afro beat music, those textures, the different rhythms binding together like that. Like yeah, I can better describe it if I was playing something from this. It's hard to describe it in words, I guess. But yeah, it's that funky Afrobeat stuff, and you want to listen to something that's kind of just different than other stuff from this time period. I don't think a lot of people were exploring music like this. Maybe there's some no wave stuff even that kind of goes down this avenue, and that's a New York scene as well. But I think David Byrne wanted to like get away from New York and find something different in his musical life. So yeah, I wrote a screenplay called Once in a Lifetime, and I'll finish this one now real quickly because I already spoke about this. And that was the Remain in Light was the album that kind of led me to a lot of the story because the story is just kind of a weird fever dream. I was trying to just escape from the three-act structure and escape from screenplay norms. I wanted to break through to write something different, and maybe I did a little bit at least. It's more of a play than a screenplay. Like, it's kind of just a continuous journey through a couple hours, and Remain in Light was the album I listened to the most as I was writing that, and included some of the songs within the story because the entire screenplay was supposed to be like a stream of consciousness, and when I didn't know what to write about, I would just be listening to Remain in Light, and of course it would seep into my writing at some point, and specifically Once in a Lifetime. The name of the episode is Once in a Lifetime, based on Once in a Lifetime. And I know, yeah, if I can't get the rights to use that song or use that title, then I just have to change it. Like, I don't know what that process is like. I just called David Byrne, like, hey man, yeah, I really like that song. I wrote a screenplay about it, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, that's cool. Just like, give me some money if you make money off of it. All right, cool, man. Thanks, David Byrne. And then, is that how it works? I don't think so, but you probably have to talk to agents and all that political shit. All right, this is a weird one. I've only listened to this once, and it's very gospel-y, folky, Americana. I don't know these people. Not to say they're not talented musicians or anything, but I found this album. I took a road trip in 2018 to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to see Gillian Welch and David Rawlings in concert at the Ramcat. And it was just one of those spontaneous road trips that I took in the fall because I usually save all my vacation days for the fall and winter time to get away when the weather gets cold. And that was the last time I took a road trip, and it was kind of cool. I write the whole story in my book. Like I ended up flipping a coin to see if I would go on this road trip or not in 2018. But I was glad I did. It was a great concert. Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. I met them. They signed my guitar. It was a cool experience, man. And when I was driving home, I ended up sleeping like in a Walmart parking lot because it was just too late to get a motel, and I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. But when I woke up a couple hours later, I started driving home, and along the drive home, I would just take the scenic route and stop at Goodwills and thrift stores and stuff throughout North Carolina, Virginia, and wherever else I was driving through. Mostly there, I think. And I found this album. It's Blue Ridge Recording, which caught my eye. And it also had the song "I'll Fly Away." It's mostly gospel songs, but there's some other, more folky songs, I guess. Yeah, like, I think the main guy's name. And yeah, I should have done. I tried to do a little research, but it's like there wasn't much about these people. Glenn Atkins, if it's the same guy, he's also like a pastor now in like Shreveport, Louisiana, I think. That's where it was. Yeah. If this is the same Glenn Atkins, apologies. But yeah, he's like a gospel preacher or something. He's a minister in Shreveport, Louisiana. So yeah, I guess it's more of a gospel record than anything. I'll Fly Away. That's the reason I really bought this. It was a Blue Ridge record label, and it had "I'll Fly Away" with Gillian and David Rawlings. They do that song at all their concerts, usually towards the end. And I really don't even know any of these other songs, really. I think it's more their original songs. Like, yeah, He Gives Me Life. These got to be mostly gospel songs. His Love Guides Me. There's a song called America. Yeah, I'll mention some of their names: Glenn Atkins, Steve Jones, Mike Wilshire, Aubrey Hilton, Cliff Massatili, and some other people. I don't know. It was a cool album. I like the feel of it, just the look of it. And I don't know what year it's from. Probably early '80s or late '70s, based on their style. But it's just cool. Like if I had millions of dollars and I had time to do whatever I wanted besides making music, I would do stuff like this. Just start a YouTube channel where I would just travel through random places and stop at thrift stores and hunt for vinyl like this. Like, buy this for a couple dollars. I would buy this every time for a couple dollars. It's probably really interesting stuff. And these are the type of records I like buying, to be honest. Like when you find something just like, well, these are just some friends that recorded an album. Probably no one has this. I think it is on Discogs if you want to check it out. look up the album Friends Blue Ridge Recordings, and you'll probably find it on there. That's where I found the guy as well, Glenn Atkins. I think he had his own solo stuff, minimal stuff on there. But I wanted to show that one to discuss that road trip story, and I do discuss it more in detail about how I ended up gambling my way there. I kind of get dramatic about it. I was working back then. I had money, but I like to gamble a lot back then. And before I took that road trip, I went to a casino to try to make money to go on my road trip. And I got a whole story about that. And yeah, other stuff like that in my book. Just random stories that are more lighthearted like that. All right, the last one I wanted to show is a compilation album. And I'm almost at an hour, so I'll make this kind of short. I picked this just because I love the cover so much. Basically, I just love this cover. It's one probably my favorite cover of all the albums I have. It's just such a cool painting. It puts me in that American state of mind, like that 60s, 70s, hit the road, like a road trip or something, and just get the fuck away from your life for a while. And I just love, I never actually listened to any of these records. I think there's two or three in here. Two, I guess. I think it's only two records. It's a, it's various artists like Jefferson Airplane, yeah, RCA, Special Products, mainly for the album cover. Like I had to keep this when I gave away my 2000 records or so in 2021 or so. I had to keep maybe 100 or so records, and this was one of them I kept. 'Cause eventually, I would probably want to frame this or something. I just love this cover so much. Yeah, Jefferson Airplane, Melanie, Country Joe and the Fish. Otis Redding's on here, Doors, Cream, Joan Baez, Eric Burdon and the Animals. There's a lot of cool stuff. Guess Who, Steppenwolf. A lot of radio friendly stuff, but it's all good music. And a little bit of that freewheeling American spirit, I guess. Well, that's from 1975. And that's what it does. It just gives me that feeling of hitting the road like I'm some nomadic wanderer throughout the country, like Easy Rider or some shit. So that's the reason I wanted to show this one. If I ever do, become successful and actually make some money off my art, off my writing, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hit the road and hopefully have a plan in mind of where I want to end up in my life. Probably West Coast, Southwest, New Mexico, Arizona, California, around that Southwest of America. And yeah, the desert seems to be calling my name like that. I used to be like, when I took my road trips in my younger years, I would always go south, Blue Ridge Mountains. I made it to Louisiana, I made it to Florida, but usually I would stop in North Carolina because I only have like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days to go explore something. So I've never made it out west. I've never been to the West Coast. Besides, my friend had a bachelor party in Vegas over a decade ago. So I've been to Vegas for like a hot minute, maybe 2 days. But I've never taken a trip to the West Coast where I just drive all the way to California or something. So that's in my plans. If I could become successful, at least it's kind of hard to do without any money. So I'm not the type of person that's going to just get on a bus or hitchhike because I don't really trust people like that. So yeah, hopefully my path in life can get there at some point. And yeah, I will do that. I would just take 2, 3 months and travel across the country and just go explore shit. Because I used to do that before 2020 all the time. Whenever I got time off, that's Usually, what I would do, not all the time, but sometimes you get that surge to just say, fuck it, I need to go drive somewhere. And I would have a destination in mind most of the time, at least. But I respect people who can do that, just drive to random places, whether you do it by yourself or not. There's so many people on YouTube that do stuff like that, and it's cool. It's the freedom type of American spirit like that. I wrote a screenplay, which I talked about before. I mentioned my screenplays because that was the first part of my life in 2021. Before this book was even a thought in my head, the first things I wrote and created were my 15 screenplays. And it took me over a year to do all that. And my favorite one is Elegant Eccentrics, which I talked about before. And it's about that type of American spirit like that. Just traveling. Number one, I love road trip movies. And it's a road trip movie, like Little Miss Sunshine type of feel to it. And number two, it has that uniquely American type of thing where you want to find a new frontier and a new identity almost to like a change of scenery. People always talk about it in sports, like this athlete, they need a change of scenery or whatever. And I think a lot of people need that at times in their lives, in their life. So that's why I wanted to talk about this one last. Why is the Southwest calling my name? I don't know, man. I always get New Mexico on the brain. Maybe because I love Mexican food. New Mexico always represented like that new type of enchantment, mysterious place, but I don't know what it's like there. The weather seems cool, and I don't know. I even tried to learn Spanish like 2 years ago, but I never really went through with it completely. And not that you need to know Spanish. It's probably like half and half if you live in certain places. And that's pretty much it. And yeah, I mention elegant eccentrics all the time because there's so much of my feelings, my frustrations, my thoughts on life in general in that screenplay. And if you want to check that out more, like I have a series just on my screenplay pitches of all those 15 that I wrote in 2021. So maybe it's only like 10 minutes where I discuss some of the themes in the movie and stuff. But that's the feeling whenever I read it still, it's still that freedom. I get that feeling of American freedom and the ability to just, I don't know, maybe not a lot of people have that ability, but there's an appeal to that. There's an appeal to just being a nomad like that. It's not easy to live a lifestyle like that. You don't know where your next meal is coming from, and you don't know where you're even headed. It's tough to do that at any age. I'm 43 now. Like it's very hard to do it now for me, at least. A lot of people get that sense of exploration and they want to journey somewhere else, whether it's in the country or take a trip somewhere overseas. Like most people get that urge in their teens and 20s, but I don't think it really leaves people. It's just a lot of people get, they have families and jobs and all this other responsibility, and they kind of lose that feeling of freedom after a while. And yeah, that's important because I always say you could take a trip in your head. I'm not saying take LSD or anything, just you can take a trip mentally in your consciousness, but actually going to a new place, that's a different kind of trip, man. It's like you can become a different person. You can you can really experience something new, whether it's in the United States or if you go somewhere else, and whether it's for a week or if it's for like the rest of your life. I don't know. It's thoughts I've always had for a long time, at least. So that's why I wanted to show that one last because I don't think I'm showing any more records at this point. So these are the last ones I'm going to show. I wanted to show that one mainly for the album cover, but there was something for me I could speak about at least. And I guess that pretty much wraps everything up for this one. I'm gonna have to edit stuff with this video because I think I went too long, and maybe some of the stuff I'm talking about is rather repetitive at this point. I keep kind of repeating myself. I'm trying not to do that. When I wrote this book, that was one of my concerns because I haven't led an interesting life like whatsoever, man. I've taken some road trips. I've, I've had some life experience. I'm not completely, I haven't been a hermit like I am now my entire life, but I knew I would start to repeat myself in a lot of the chapters. So that was a worry for me, but I think I handled it okay. I don't want to present myself as a one dimensional artist or just a one dimensional human being in general. Like, hopefully, through my music selections and my movies and what I'm talking about with my crazy rants, it's more just to show people that, yeah, there's a lot of layers to my artistic persona or my artistic direction. But yeah, I don't think when I create something, I'm not trying to become somebody different. Like, if I was to become a performer, maybe I would have to have that click in my brain. Like, if I became a performer and I had to perform some of these things, I would have to completely transform to a different mentality completely. But just as a songwriter, as whatever kind of screenwriter, you don't really have to do that. You can escape through your characters, through your songs, through your lyrics, and hopefully you find an audience that connects with that. Because basically, that's how art is generated, right? Like, I made art because other people made art before me and inspired me to make art. And those people were inspired by somebody else. It's just a long cycle of an artistic ether that just keeps going and going. Uh, yeah, I think I'll end it on that note because I'm running out of things to ramble about.